What's going on, everybody? Feder here from 3D Print SOS. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to start a multi-part video on direct drive machines, and I have two of them here today in the shop. Let me go ahead and grab one. The first one is the Voxelab Aquila S2. And this is the newest machine in the Voxelab lineup, and the Aquila S2 comes with a direct drive extruder, a new build plate, and it's supposed to go all the way up to 300C. So this is actually a really important machine for Voxelab to get right, because if they're able to do it, this is under $300 and can print things like nylon and carbon fiber nylon and carbon fiber and reinforced PETG, things along those lines. So this could be an amazing machine for those people that are looking to get into some of the more harder to print materials, and all under $300 with direct drive. So alongside this machine, I have another one. This one is a new brand for the channel. It is the Mingda Magician X. And although this is a really similar looking machine, like if you squint and walk away, this aims to do a whole different thing than that one. This one is priced a little bit above $300, but that's because it is completely packed with features. It has auto bed leveling. It has a dual Z that is synced with a belt. It has a touch screen. It has a bunch of different ways to communicate with the machine and connect to the machine. This thing has a lot of really cool features and a lot of really cool parts. So somewhat similarly priced, somewhat similar machine, but they both aim to do different things. So if you're in the market for a direct drive machine, hopefully after this series we can get to know them a little bit better, and we'll know which direction it is better to go in, what they do well, what they don't do well. So usually what I like to do is I take machines out, I lay them out on the table, I go over what I'm seeing, what I like, what I don't like, then we put them together, and then I do some test prints, and then we see how well they print directly out of the box. And typically I print things like benchies. I'll continue to print some benchies here and there. But I typically print what's on the SD card. Most of the time they turn out really great. And what I want to do is change that up a little bit. Let me grab something. So for those that have been watching the channel for a while, this is a familiar sight. I ran it in a video in some snow. This is my 1/8 scale crawler. It is a Defender, and it is completely 3D printed other than the shocks, the tires, and the electronics and the battery. So everything else, every single piece is 3D printed. It is completely full of features, full interior. It weighs a ton. It was a lot of filament and a long time to print and assemble. So this has been by far one of the most rewarding 3D prints and just projects that I've done in a very long time. And I actually purchased another set. I purchased the Bamboo 4x4, which is supposed to be a Toyota FJ. I'm going to keep it a lot more scale looking than this. Not that this isn't scale, but this thing is modified, and a lot of modifications for this are on my Thingiverse or prusaprinters.org profile, so you can find those there. If you have one of these or you're looking to build one, there's a bunch of ways to improve this machine. But everything here is printed in PLA. It is even down to the gears that are in the reduction gearbox, down to the axles and all the drivetrain inside. And like I said, this thing was so rewarding. I'm really excited to do another one. And the point is when I test these machines and upcoming modifications to machines, I'm going to be printing parts for the next kit. And the point is that it has to be accurate. Things for something like this have to fit together well. They can't warp. They have to be accurate in size. And a lot of times when you print a trinket for something that sits on a shelf or that you're just going to go ahead and toss, even though they might look really nice, they might not be exactly what you want or need if you're trying to make it functional. So things like this have to work, and function, and that's what I'm after. I'm gonna test these machines properly. On this machine, I'm really excited to test a little bit hotter temp stuff like nylon. That could help with things like gearing in here. And something like this could be used for body because it's supposed to be really easy to set up, really easy to set and print PLA in. So this could be really nice. So what I did was, let me put this down. What I did was I set up a poll on the community section of YouTube, and more than 80% of you said start with the Aquila. I know why you guys are excited, and I'm excited too. So let's go ahead and start with that machine. Like I mentioned, we're going to take it out, we're going to see what's in there, look at the components in detail, then we're going to assemble it, and then we're going to do some prints and see how it does right out of the box. For this entire project, I'm going to be using 3D Max filament. I've really been kind of impressed and enjoying that filament thoroughly. It is extremely inexpensive to get. They have a lot of bulk deals. So for a project like this, where you need a ton of different filaments, you can get them, if you get them 10 rolls, for example, they're down to $8.99 per roll, which is an absolute steal. So definitely going to be checking that filament and really testing that as well, because I have a ton to print, and you can see I've already started. I'm going to be using all Voxelab machines for the most part, outside of things that you'll see in videos for the project, so that you know that it's completely attainable and actually not that difficult. It's just there's a lot to do, and as time goes on, I'll show you more about the project, and I'll share it more on the channel as it goes, and you guys can kind of like be a part of the build process with me. All right, without further ado, let's get that Aquila out, see what it's all about. Let's go. All right, so let's get this thing unboxed. I got my trusty blade here. Let's cut through this tape. It's actually not taped nearly as much as some of their other boxes were. Maybe a good thing. Let's see. All right, so as usual, we have our little guide to show you that the power supply can be set to different voltages. We got a Aquila S2 manual, so that's going to be useful. We'll check that out, especially for a Cura profile. It would be nice to see what kind of differences there are with the profile of this machine. Looks like right off the bat I see several samples of filament. This says PETG and this says PAHT, natural. I honestly don't even know what PAHT is. But the print temperature says 260 to 280 C. So that's actually quite a bit. So we're gonna put that to the test to some degree. PETG 220, 240, bed 80. What's the bed here? 60 to 80. Interesting. Okay, that's nice. All right, I'll just start taking more parts out. We have the power cable. All right, I see the display. I'm trying to reach in here and pulling it out. All right, we have the Aquila display. It does not have a logo like the original machine. Let's see which orientation this one might be at. Oh, this shows that it's going to be upward this way. Okay. Must be one of the metal brackets like they had on the X2. All right, here we have the carriage. So interestingly enough, they didn't develop a new X-axis, I guess, bracket. This is where the original extruder usually sits. They just kept it here, I guess, in case anyone wanted to go Bowden for some reason. So that's not necessarily a bad thing. Gives you options, I guess. But it's just interesting that they didn't remove that from the design. And it looks like the X-axis stepper has a press fit gear. Also not necessarily a bad thing. Only bad if something goes wrong, I guess. But I've never had issues with them before. And I've always noted that they exist because I don't know, for some reason I like the ability to remove it. Although once you have everything set up, you very rarely, if ever, even do it. We have the bracket that holds on the display, and we have a spare foot pad. That's interesting because worth noting that after unboxing a whole bunch of these machines, once in a blue moon the feet are not only attached but sometimes even missing. So cool that that's included. They know that there's some kind of issue and they're fixing it. All right, let's see how this works. I have the Hotend here that I'm trying to pull up, and it's connected with wiring, obviously. It does have some weight to it. It is actually a pretty heavy unit. We'll get into a little more detail in a second. I have the bed here, the magnetic bed. I'm actually going to peel that up just so I can rest this on it. Here, let's take a look at the plate. Very nice. I've been really excited to try this out. I know you can get these on their website as well, so this could be a nice upgrade if you guys have one of these machines or a similar machine and you want to get one of these beds. One of the other benefits is glass could take a longer time to heat up, so this is good in that sense. It's good for removing prints, and it has this nice texture. I'm not sure if you could move the other, if you could use the smooth side of this. I'll give that a try at some point. But I always wanted to try one of these because it kind of gives the print this texture of almost like a camera style plastic, like something with a good grip. So I've always wanted to try one of these. But let me go ahead and take out the main portion of the machine. There we go. I'll put it right over here. And I'm actually gonna go ahead and put this down, get some more room on the table, and I'll just go over everything as I pull it out of the box. All right, so here's the main bulk of the machine, and here is the hot end. Actually, let me continue taking everything out of the box, and then we'll go ahead and take a look at what that hot end is all about. All right, we got our typical hardware. We have scraper, basic tools, we have a nozzle, some hardware there. I always did like the way that Voxelab does this. Not a lot of brands do it this way. They do it in little baggies, but something about this, you don't have a million bags. You just have this one thing to throw away later. We have the SD card, the belt for the X. All right, this is the Z motor, the Z rod. The Z rod's typically packaged differently on these machines, but not on this one. This one's kind of just in the box. We have spare screws, and I have a little extra gift in there. Just a loose screw. Must have came out of something. We'll find it. Okay, extrusions. We have two 2040s and two 2020s. One of these is going to be for the X-axis. The other one is going to be for the top of the gantry. Looks like this one is to the top. Looks nice. I'm just going to go ahead and unwrap these. Okay, this one looks like it has some kind of decal, like glue residue on it. I might have to clean that with some isopropyl alcohol. Otherwise, they look pretty good. Pretty standard stuff. Okay, we have a separate tensioner for the X. We have the spool holder and the limit switch for the Z. We have some zip ties. We have the spool holder brackets and the other side of the X. And the last thing I see in the box is two more filament samples. Here we have PETG carbon fiber. So that's pretty cool. Looks like the temperature for this is 220, 240, 80C on the bed. And we have PLA carbon fiber. So lots of materials for us to play with, including a new one that I don't know what it is and I have to do some research on. 210, 230, 50 on the bed. Oh no, nothing for the bed here. It's a storage temperature. So interesting stuff. Exciting materials to check out. Knowing that they're actually promoting printing this type of stuff on this machine is pretty cool. So definitely worth testing and checking out. Okay, let's check out the unit itself, including the business end of this entire machine, the hot end. Let me check the box one last time and I'll get you a different camera view for this. One thing I noticed right away when looking at it, there's actually no sticker on the front. So I don't know if this is an H32 or an N32 machine. Typically on all their new machines, they actually label it. So we will have to take a look at the chip itself and see what motherboard we have, because that will play a role. And actually, I found something in here. There's a little bag of a benchy. Interesting. Looks like a custom Voxelab themed benchy. It looks different yet the same. Kind of like copy my homework but make it a little bit different. This has a texture to it, kind of like carbon fiber nylon typically does. It doesn't weigh much. I have a feeling this is carbon fiber PLA or carbon fiber PETG. Find it interesting that they give you this model. I wonder if this machine printed this as the test in the factory, and this is their way of proving that this particular machine has been tested and working. Actually kind of cool if that's the case. I wish there was a little label that said like tested on or something like that, you know, with a label. Voxelab, if you guys get a hold of this, I think that would be really, really neat if there was just a label in here with a date or tested by with someone's signature, just kind of like as proof that this machine works, and if you assemble it correctly, it should continue to print like this. I think that would be an awesome little tiny touch, little change that you guys can make to make this way better. Although, you know, this is already a step forward. All right, let's keep going. Before I take a look at the hot end, I definitely want to check which chip this is. Looks like this is getting a little tippy, so I'll be careful and hold it. Let me take the hardware off. All right, so let's take a look what we got. My big head might be blocking everything, but let me take a look. Is an N32 machine. So this is an N32 without a sticker. I'm honestly not sure how that's going to work. I got this directly from Voxelab as a test unit to make videos with. I'm not entitled to say anything about the machine whatsoever. They just sent me one of these units to check out and test and talk about. So I'm not sure. I did look at their website based on another comment that I saw that said that N32s were not available, and I did go ahead and check every other region, and you could not select N32. So I don't know if they're temporarily out or they're out for the time being, but it looks like most of these machines, at least at the moment, are going to be H32 machines. I personally have experience with several H32 machines. If you keep them stock and just use them as is, they're perfectly fine. They only become an issue when you want to add things like different extruders, things of that nature. Technically speaking, even with the stock firmware, it should work perfectly fine. Most of I've had two H32 machines, and both of them have printed absolutely perfectly, and I haven't had issues just using it the way it is, using it with Cura. Octoprint is now fixed. So if you get one of these with an H32, I wouldn't fret too much, honestly. I think it'll be totally fine. And we will test how it performs in stock fashion. I'm not going to be putting any kind of firmware on this. Okay, so now that we know that even though we don't have a sticker here, we have an N32 here. All right, I'm taking a look at the bed. I had a machine that had a spot in the y-axis here that had some issues, but this seems pretty good. It does have a little wobble to it, so we will tighten that when we set it up. All right, let's take a look at the hot end. So this is kind of like the business end of the entire printer. That's what this thing is, what this whole machine is all about. And I haven't really seen this particular design, so this is definitely something proprietary to Voxelab. I'm just kind of, you know, moving it around, seeing what this is all about. Let's find our little toolkit here. Let's take this cover off and see what's under there. Going to 300 should mean that there's no PTFE tube on the inside of this machine. All right, looks like there is a screw on top and a few in the back. Oh, on the side here. Okay, so let's see. Let's take out the one on top. One thing I do hope is, I hope that the fans on this machine are completely different than their other machines. I've had plenty of different machines fail after long prints. Something in the 15 or 20 or so hour range definitely ruins the fans, and they start making that crazy noise after a while on other machines. So it'd be nice to see different fans on here. All right, so let's take a look here. Let's get you a little closer. All right, so here's what we got under the cover. I see a aluminum machined piece that looks really nice, actually. And let's see, the way it's mounted to the carriage is, it looks like these two bolts here and the little bracket. Does this hold the fan? Yep. Okay, so the fan is actually a 30mm fan, and it is held on with this screw right here, and then a second one that the cover is held on with. It looks like this little guy has a 3D printed piece, and it is pointed right at the nozzle. Looks like the block itself is pretty standard. I don't see anything special there. The nozzle is a pretty standard MK8 nozzle. I do see that it is touching the block. Typically you'd want it like a thread or two away from the block, but this is how they have it factory, so I'm not gonna mess with it too much. The heat break looks pretty special and proprietary. It looks like it's all in there with this bolt. Let me see if I can get to it. Let's see if it will let us take it out to take a closer look. The way that I think this works is it's just held in place by one. That's how it should be, at least. That's true, and now the wiring is holding it. Okay, that's okay. Let me get some tools. I got the thermistor. Nice. The thermistor is lightly held in place, which is good. Sometimes when these are over tightened, the wires get hurt. All right, so let me just very gently pry the thermistor out. And then let's see, this cartridge is actually held in here with a larger Allen key than typical. I mean the actual bolt that holds it in place. Everything slides out of here real nice. All right, let's see if I can get it out here now. Did that do it? Let's see, it did. Okay, let's take a look at this business end here. All right, so this heat break is pretty interesting. Worth noting that this piece weighs like nothing. I'm not gonna mess with this. I'm gonna keep it stock how it is. I do like that there's a notch right here, which means that every time that you put this back into this piece, it is going to pop into the same exact spot. So you could change this without too much problem with leveling. That's nice. This aluminum block should be interesting to see how it works. If the motor gets really hot, the heat will transfer back into this. So that's kind of interesting. I guess we'll see how it all operates. Obviously, they've done a ton of testing. I can't see any information on the 30mm fan. The sticker on the back of it is black, so there are no specs. I'm assuming it's still 24 volt, but it would have been nice to see some other specs on this, and I'm interested to see how loud it is. As far as the extruder goes, this looks to be a similar extruder to what the Voxelab Aries looks like actually, at least the arm itself. I don't see anything wrong with this. It is a multi-piece design. The spring is really firm, and the gear is the kind that you would expect to see on something like a dual geared almost, without the teeth at the bottom. So that should be interesting. I did see that Voxelab did provide files actually for a TPU-friendly version of this, and essentially this block that you see on the bottom here, you would reprint this and it would put a smaller gap between the gears and this block to let you print TPU even easier. Things like really flexible stuff like Ninja Flex, for example. All right, let me go ahead and put this back together, and we will move on. Everything here looks really nice. I'm excited to try it out. All right, the unit is back together. I used the zip tie that was included to get the cabling back to how it should be, and everything looks nice and tidy and easy. Really simple. I'm interested to see how this is going to perform with prints in terms of ghosting and such. This is somewhat heavy because the motor is here now instead of on the side that only needs to go up. So with this thing moving back and forth, I wonder how ghosting and artifacts are going to be. Really excited to try that out, especially because this is still a single-sided Z machine. I also don't see a simple bracket that would be on here for a leveler, but I do see an area right here that one could be added later, so maybe that's their plan for a future machine, maybe not. I do like the design of this. It has this particular look to it. All right, I'm going to start to put this thing together, and when it's all together, I'll see you there and we'll talk a little further before I do some tests. All right, let's build it. All Alright, so there it is, the S2 all assembled. It actually went together really easily, really similar to how all these other machines are, the Ender 3, the other Aquilas. And in fact, because this is direct drive, there's slightly less things to do here. You don't have to plug in the extruder, you don't have to mess with the PTFE tube, things along those lines. So actually this is just a hair easier, otherwise almost exactly the same outside of the build plate. The magnet is already pre-glued onto the plate, so you don't have to put that on. You don't have to put that on yourself or a liner or anything like that. The one thing to note is I do have a video on how to fix the alignment issue that happens on these tensioners on the X, and this one does have the same problem as all the rest of them do. I have a bunch of machines that have the same issue, but all you need to do is put a washer underneath this nut to solve that. So if you have some washers laying around, throw one in there while you're doing it, and check out the video I have on that issue on the channel. I'll put a link somewhere for it. Looks like everything is up and running. I did want to mention that this fan is actually somewhat quiet. I thought it was going to be much louder for being so small, but it's not so bad. It's about the same as a stock one. I have two running behind me right now, and they sound similar, if not even a little bit louder than this at the moment. It blows a ton of air. Like, you can feel it all the way this far out. And I know they need that because this thing will get hot. Another thing that might help this machine, and I don't know this for sure yet, just going on, off of what I'm seeing, is this doesn't have a silicone sock, and it does have a brass nozzle. It looks like an MK8 nozzle, so you can get some stainless nozzle, steel nozzle, or a something like a Zodiac 3D nozzle would really be killer on this, especially for hot temps. And a silicone sock would just help maintain temperatures a little bit better. So there's some room for improvement. I know they're kind of shooting for this to be a DIY machine, but this is what enables you to print a lot of the hot stuff. Not that you can't do that on the original Aquila, so I'm kind of interested to see what an original Aquila with a few mods is going to feel like against this. And I'm really interested to see how this build plate does, because you can buy one of these from Voxelab themselves. So here's the next step. We need to go ahead and level this machine, and once it's leveled, I'll do a bunch of test prints with a bunch of different materials. I'll film the whole thing, and then we'll meet back here and I'll show you how it all went, and we'll talk about it. All right, let's get going. Alright, so I've actually stopped printing here, and I'll go over why in a second. So far, let me talk about what's happened. I've printed that PEHT stuff that came with the printer, the really high temperature, kind of like nylon stuff that they have, and it came out okay. It over extruded quite a bit, so it doesn't quite fit into the bearings without a lot of cleanup, but it should be okay with cleanup, and it just needs to be tuned. That profile definitely needs to be tuned. It's not quite right. It did, however, all print, and these are tiny pieces for a really hot temperature, so I know that's hard to do. Then I tried nylon. Nylon was good at first, but then it started over extruding, got caught up, peeled right off the bed. Another thing that needs tuning. Then I tried polypropylene. carbon fiber, which is another hot filament, and it started printing great, stuck to the bed, but yet again, just over extruded. Then I tried PETG. PETG came out pretty good. I think I had the temperature a little bit too hot for the top here, but the resolution is really nice. The sides look really, really nice, and the bearing fits right into this little test print, which means PETG on this should be really good. Then I tested regular old PLA, and it came out just absolutely stunning. PLA came out absolutely perfect, and this is a little piece to test dimensions so that everything on the kit ends up fitting, and you're supposed to be able to push this bearing in, but it can't fall out, and this came out literally exactly how you would want this to be from printing this. So I know that parts out of this material on this printer should be fairly accurate. So that's really nice. So then I printed this, full bed's worth of 100% infill. This is a gearbox for the kit that we're working on, a reduction gearbox, and the PLA is a bit shiny. I haven't cleaned it up yet, but it came out literally perfect. And the bottom texture, gotta love the texture. All the pieces just look so professional and just clean, and it's great. But then after this, I was going to start another kind of large PLA print, and I got out a bunch of other filament to try, like I have here, carbon fiber nylon, things of that nature, just ready to really test this thing. But then Ray from the official Facebook groups messaged me. He was like, hey, my nozzle is kind of weird, check it out, I think it's proprietary. And earlier you guys saw that I took this hot end apart, and with this I also had a spare MK8 in the box in a little bag. So I figured, oh look, it's just an MK8. Well, here's why I've halted using the machine. So right now it's marketed as a 300C all metal hot end with swappable nozzles. Even on their website right now it says that you can easily swap from brass to steel, which you don't get a steel. So I wanted to see what Ray was talking about. Let me show you how this whole thing is set up. So the nozzle, if you just start to unscrew it, it kind of like comes off with this block. I'm gonna set this down for a sec. And as you can see, it goes all the way through. So when you unthread this, there's kind of like a recess in the block. So this block is proprietary, and at first I thought maybe this was a Volcano nozzle, but no, Volcano nozzles are longer than this. This is shorter. The threads are the same as an MK8, but they're longer. So a proprietary brass nozzle on a printer that's supposed to print carbon fiber filaments, that's not really going to last that long. Then there's this piece. Then I noticed that this was kind of a different color, so I clamped this and I got this thing loose, and this is the heat break. It looks like this is steel and this is aluminum, and look what's inside. There is a PTFE tube touching a piece of steel that's touching the hot block and the nozzle. And all of this looks to be proprietary, unless I'm mistaken here. I'm not sure what this is from, or if I could get replacements or what. I know this nozzle is going to wear if I keep printing carbon fiber materials. The other thing about this block is that when you put the nozzle into the block and it goes all the way like this, when you put this piece on, it actually bottoms out on the nozzle and not the block itself. So even though this nozzle is all the way screwed in right now to this is just loose. So you only have to kind of like press fit it against itself for this to work properly. It just seems like this is not correct. And maybe I have a prototype model of this. Maybe what they're actually shipping is not this. But Voxelab, if you guys are watching this, and I'll send this over to you guys and I'll message you. I want to be respectful. I don't just want to bash the product, but I've tested it and I've ran into issues, and this has been brought to my attention. And honestly, it's kind of like a trust issue, right? If this is supposed to be a 300C printer, all metal, easily swap, I don't see any of those things. To me, this is not a proper all metal 300C you know, product. So that's kind of where I'm going to halt on this, and when Voxelab sends me some kind of response, I'll let you guys know in the community tab. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this all back together. I'm going to keep the printer as is, just in case they message me. Maybe there's an update and I just have an earlier model, like I said. And I'm going to move on to the next machine, which I'm really looking forward to. In the meantime, let me talk about the positives so far that I've had about this machine. I think this flex plate is really good. It took me a little while to get used to, but once I did, getting a little bit closer to the bed than what I did have to do for glass, I mean, the bottom is just, I love this texture. It reminds me of like a camera, like that texture of the grips, and it comes off so easily. You just flex it and go. So its PLA performance was really great. Like I said, this is really nice. The fans are great. I did over 30 hours on just a single print on this machine, and when I did that on the other Aquila machines, I did it to a brand new H32 Aquila and the X2, and both of those had the same fan failures. Both fans failed on the machine after really long prints like that. So this has some kind of different manufacturer for fans. They work really well. It is a bit quieter than the other X2s. I definitely like the overall idea of having a direct drive. It kind of reminds me of the Focus Odin machine, but that one is also lined, so you can't print hot temperatures on this. So that's where the questions kind of rise. What happened with this Hotend? Like I said, maybe it's just mine, and if it's not, it's a red flag for me. So buyer beware. Like I said, I'll keep you guys posted about what they say. Lots of things going for this machine, and it's kind of like they shot themselves in the foot before running type of thing. So eager to hear what the deal is. Lots to like, but I have questions. As another update on the situation, I messaged Voxelab, and one of the representatives there has been super nice. Faye, thank you for just everything in general. But she explained to me that here's the diagram, by the way, of what they're working with here. And she said that one of the engineers explained to her that the 11 millimeter nozzle sends the PTFE tube far enough away from the heat to where it will never be an issue, even at 300C. So that's why it's rated at 300C. And as for the nozzle itself, she said that they shipped these things to an international warehouse so that purchasing these would be cheap and easy. Because in their text on the website they said that it's easy to exchange for a steel one, I'm assuming we would be able to buy both brass and steel nozzles directly from Voxelab, and they do have somewhat fast shipping actually from their website. So they have answered both of my concerns for the Hotend. So I've reassembled everything, and I'm just going to wait to see how we can get replacements before I do any more work with it, because that's my major concern. Like I said, there's lots of things to really like about this machine, including its price point for what you're getting and all of its features, but at the same time something just isn't quite right with the Hotend in my personal opinion. But if they can make it really easy, inexpensive for everyone, get these nozzles and maybe even like nozzle kits with several of them, and they can say that there's no issue with that PTFE tube, then hey, maybe we're fine. And I'll definitely do a little bit more research on the subject. I'll definitely be testing this machine further, so it's not going to be the last time you see more of this machine. So if you guys would like to see more of the Voxelab S2 or have any specific questions or concerns, put them down in the comments below, and hopefully Voxelab hears us about our concerns and answers every single one of them, and then the printer is good to go. Let's end it there. The project is going to continue. Let me show you actually what I have so far printed. All right, my other printers have been going strong, printing everything we need. We have giant panels for a roof. We have the hood. We have fenders. We have the front end. We have the door panels. I actually am running out of yellow, so I need to grab another roll of yellow from 3D Max to continue printing everything, but things are coming out absolutely perfect. This project definitely works on Aquila machines. Here is a part of the rim. The rim is a three-piece design, which is really nice. I got the dashboard printed. I have a million little pieces that are like latches for doors and things of that nature. So a really good start, but still have a ton to print. Still need to print on all the chassis pieces, some of the suspension components, the axles. There's still a ton to print. So I'm really excited to get the other machine up so I can continue printing with this project. I was kind of hoping to have a high temperature material for the gears that go on the inside of this reduction gearbox. But I do have a model that's printed in all just straight PLA, and it has held up for over a year now, and it's been great. So I'm not going to fret too much if it's going to have to be PLA. I'll just have to make them 100% infill and print them a little bit hotter so that we get really good layer adhesion. But generally speaking, everything's going well. You guys know what I already said about this machine. I'm gonna stop it here, and let me know what questions and concerns you guys might have. Maybe if we ask a lot of questions and they see this video, maybe we can make a change together, and maybe we can help them make this machine better, because I see a lot of potential here. It just, the hot end just rubs me the wrong way a little bit. So Voxelab, looking forward to hearing from you, and I'll see you guys in a little while when we test the other machine. Later.